Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we discuss my thoughts on episode 23 of ClassicaLoid Season 2, and this was a spectacular episode. We're finally rounding out to Wa-kun's endgame, and it's kind of funny how, Chopin at one point during the episode compares everything that's going on to, like, being out of a video game. And I was thinking exactly that. Like, it reminded me of playing the final stages of Final Fantasy VII back in the day, when the end boss, Sephiroth, is going through these transformations, and you have to sort of break up your characters into different teams. It felt very much RPG-esque, as our ClassicaLoids come to the ARC facility, which has been completely transformed through Wa-kun's Wagner's music, the Siegfried funeral march and such like that. And some really interesting nuggets were dropped in this episode, especially revolving around Kyogo's having finally, confronted Wagner and basically letting him know that he had decided not to expose Wagner in his sort of test tube form to the original Wagner's music. He decided to stave that off. And here all along, Wa-kun has, considered himself to be botched. All the other ClassicaLoids are the perfect, ClassicaLoids. They're the perfect versions, the perfect models. But it seems they're hinting at the fact that, Kyogo in his creation of the ClassicaLoids began to realize there were faults in all of the ones he had thus far made, and he rounded about to Wagner and decided to go a different direction, to make a more perfect ClassicaLoid, stave off the musique, not have musique become a part of the final mold. So in reality, it seems to suggest to me that Wagner's actually where he thinks he's botched. He's so consumed with that aspect of his being imperfect, being botched. It seems to me that Kyogo's own, impressions on this were to stave off the music to make him become the perfected final product of what he had envisioned in creating the ClassicaLoids in the first place. So that it's a perfect, irony that in a sense Wagner is the perfect version of this, and he just, because of all the other ClassicaLoids, they're actually the imperfect ones. Kyogo finally worked around this idea that, well, I'm not gonna include the music anymore because it makes them imperfect. It doesn't, allow them to be exactly what I wanted them to be. And in that, he realized and utilized that fact with, Wa-kun, with Wagner. And so he's the perfect model, and everyone else is actually the botched, I think, is what they're getting at. And it's kind of gobsmacking and really exciting. He feels betrayed. And it was very much answering to some of my, speculatory questioning. Will everything just go easy peasy Japanese or will Wagner find that his estimation of his pseudo-father in Kyogo is not going to match up? Maybe it's not going to be all lovey-dovey and go as perfectly as Wagner would hope. And that's exactly the case. He found out that Kyogo purposely withheld the musique, and he estimates that with purposely having made him botched. It was like something against him. Everything is against him. The whole world, even his own father, Kyogo. So he lashes out and he summons forth that, funeral dirge, and just all hell breaks loose. And, of course, I loved the whole sort of sneaking in sequence of Himiko and Kyogo. She looks like a reject from Gem and the Holograms, and they're supposed to be like rock stars. Oh, let us in. And Baksama's there in the like gyoza icon, the iconography, the costume. And then we find out Mitsuru has a whole bunch of her Mitsuruloids, now reformed in the visage of Bach, and this is an army that she can just summon forth. They just drop out of the ceiling, no matter where she is in the building. She's probably got all the pipe work, interconnectivity all throughout the building. No matter where she is, she could be in the parking garage, she could be in the office, she could, be in the bathroom. Come, Mitsuruloids, and then here all of a sudden these like Bach doppelgangers show up out of nowhere. They stave off the guards, so Kyogo and Himiko can get in to see Wagner and all this kind of stuff. All the while, I feel so bad for Kanai, because her heart is breaking. She's made these cute little keychain ornaments, good luck charms that she wants to share with Wa-kun. He'll have the one that represents her visage and she'll have his, and that'll connect them that much more. She really has a sisterly, feeling about him and wanting to be protective of him and has that care and concern for him. And so it's so heartbreaking to see how he dismisses her automatically. I mean, she waits outside one of the places where he's going to be pulling up in the car, and she immediately runs up to the window and she's got her face pressed against it. Wa-kun, come home, please. And he just dismisses her outright and out of sight, out of mind, out of hand. And it's really sad. But I love how this turns itself around by the end of the episode. She has to convince the rest of the ClassicaLoids, because Kyogo gets in a last-minute call to Kanai, bring help now. Even though the ClassicaLoids, they all seem to be powerless, he suggests that they are not. That it's kind of like a fart in the breeze. They're just plugged up and their music is still part of them, their music. They just need to clear the pathway again, and they'll realize that and they'll be able to summon it forth again. Wagner did not, in fact, siphon their powers away from them or whatever like that. He put a temporary stamp on them, I guess. I love that allusion to farts. Yes, of course. It's Kyogo after all. But he gets that call in, and Kanai has to convince the ClassicaLoids to go essentially help. They're like, well, isn't this a family matter? We're not really involved, But she points out what I have been saying all along, and it's it's kind of pushing the boundaries of suspensions of disbelief that they haven't cumulatively figured this out yet. We're all kind of a family. If he's our father, we're all kind of brothers and sisters here. We're all kind of family. And I love how Beats is the one to acknowledge, you know what, I like the sound of that. And you have Moats getting all gloomy on with Kanai. Oh my God, if I'm your brother, it's the forbidden love and all. Kanai's just like, no, I don't think so. Wrong approximation there, Moats. So they finally do come running. And Sosuke had been there to try to become Wa-kun's apprentice, because everyone else eschews him, and he's always going to be put upon, the talentless hack of the group. And so he's like, well, maybe I can get an in-footing with Wa-kun and become his apprentice, and people will suddenly see that I actually have talent and all this stuff, and that completely fails miserably. But he ends up being their shoe-in, So they do that very RPG-esque split into three groups, and the main focus group that we focus upon is Kanai and Chopin and whoever the hell else was with her. I forget how who went with whom, with the exception of Schubert, who did not get to go with Beats. I know that much. I think it was Beethoven with her as well, and it was just all kinds of spectacular how she brings forth, they meet a barrier, they meet a wall, a stoppage, which involves, Wagner's emotions. Nothing can break beyond that barrier. And it's something Chopin has to explain. It's something he probably highly relates to internally, closing off the rest of the world and such like that. So it's his insight that pays forth Kanai's appreciation of the fact that, Wagner is internalizing. He's closed himself in. He is in need of saving. And whom better at this point, where he has been betrayed by his mother, where he has been betrayed by his mentor in Bach, where he has been betrayed in his own father, who better than Big Sis, Kanai? And when she brings forth those good luck charms, her emotions pouring into them, her tears, all of a sudden summon forth what I can only sort of estimate as being a music of a sort. She completely transforms, and it's much akin to what we saw at the end of season 1, where she and Sosuke had been transformed by the music and such like that through the ClassicaLoids collectively. But this is all Kanai. It's all on Kanai. Big Sis is coming to save little bro. And she is going to be the saving grace of this entire plot, of this entire story, of all of what, Wa-kun has gone through. He's just in search of someone to care about him and to embrace him and to hold him tight and let him know it's all going to be okay. Give him compassion and warmth and attention along those lines. And now it falls to Kanai. And her transformation, the boldness of that, that's where we leave off with the episode. And it was goosebumps inducing for me. I was like, oh, hell yes. uber stoked and excited, and I can't wait to see how this all wraps up in the final 2 episodes of Season 2 of ClassicaLoid. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you've seen this particular episode, episode 23 of Season 2, what you thought of it, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, if you thought it was profound as I did, and intriguing with, again, the little bomb drops, those nodules of info that, you know, Kyogo is saying, I held back the music from you, Wagner, you know, from Wa-kun. And maybe, if my speculations are correct, that he was doing that as a means by which to make him a more perfected version, to allow him to be his own person, maybe. Whereas all the other classicaloids, they've purposely conformed to the visages of these classical composers. Maybe that wasn't the intent after a while for Kyogo. And, you know, all that goofy stuff, them trying to sneak in, looking like a, you know, glam rock band from the 80s, and Mitsuru's own, MitsuruLoids all looking like Bach now and summoning their own musiques for whatever, and Kanai's transformation. I mean, it was a spectacular episode, like I say. 2 thumbs up from this guy. And love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, whether you had an exciting experience watching it, whether you thought it was paltry and inexcusable and stupid or whatever, you know, like anything goes, as long as we have a great conversation. And so, yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.